Ladies and gentlemen, warriors of the midnight hours, guardians of your own forgotten vows, welcome into the uncharted hallways of your soul, where echoes of reckoning whisper in the dark. Tonight, you have stepped into a gathering not of comfort, but of confrontation. For the rumors that drift through the city alleys and shadowed corridors speak of you in hushed tones. They swear you made a deal with death, 'cause you're still breathing. Yes, they claim you bartered everything, shook a hand you cannot see, and yet here you stand. You might ask, did you? And the thumbnail above asks the same. You made a deal, didn't you? Silence greets that question, but inside you, the answer can't help but rise. Tonight I'll speak to that. I'll speak to that deal, that rumor, that truth hidden beneath the city's gossip. I'll speak to you. When they say you made a deal with death, they mean you skirted the edge of the abyss, that you looked into the void, and the void looked back, and still you exhaled. They believe you reached out, touched the black underbelly of life's underpass and said, I'll live anyway. They whisper you accepted a burden so heavy, so potent, that mere survival would be your trophy, and every breath a defiance. They whisper you know something they don't yet dare to acknowledge. But what if that deal with death wasn't a contract signed in blood under a midnight sky? What if instead it was a vow, a secret oath you made to yourself, under your own watchful soul? A vow that you would keep walking even when the pavement cracked beneath you. A vow that you would keep breathing even when the air tasted like ash. Consider this. Every time you drew that breath against the odds, you rewrote the rumor. Every time you stood when you were meant to fall, you shattered a lie about what deals we make and what debts we owe. The gossip says death claimed you already, but you're alive. That alone is your answer, so listen closely. Because in the darkest chambers of the universe, your vibration matters. In the spaces where hope is just a single flicker, your heartbeat replies to the abyss. You didn't bow, you didn't yield. You kept walking while everyone else paused to watch. That's the deal they're talking about, not with death, but with you. What I want you to feel in these moments is the raw weight of that claim. They swear you made a deal with death, because living is rare when most expect you to fold. They didn't see the nights you lay awake, the times you heard your own pulse like a distant rifle, the moments you pressed your back to the wall and told yourself, not tonight. In this place tonight, we embrace what everyone else dismisses. We bring to light the contract you signed. It's not written on parchment, not sealed by a sinister handshake. It's carved in muscle memory and imprints of pain. It's inked in the hours when the moon held you up and the darkness asked, do you still believe? And you answered, yes. Turning toward that deal, let me emphasize something. The streets that spread your legend, they don't understand the terms. They define it as a pact with death because they fear what you survived. They reduce your survival to a spectacle. But you know that deal is far deeper than mere living. It's about becoming. Because surviving is just the beginning. Surviving is the spark. But you went beyond. You stepped into flame and made it your ally. When the city says you're still breathing because you made a deal, it's almost as if they concede you cheated the reaper. But really you embraced your own mortality and turned it into motion. Your breath is the rising count of every time you refuse the silent request to stop. Why do they gossip? Because they're looking for answers to their own dread. When someone refuses to fold, when someone is still breathing though the forecast promise ruin, that spectacle unsettles them. They whisper so they don't have to mirror your endurance. They whisper because what you carry makes them ask, if they survived, then what's my excuse? So you become a symbol. Not because you wanted it, but because you lived it. You carried the weight day after day when no one was watching. You took the punches, made the decisions, sometimes walked through fire just to test if the flame would forge you stronger or consume you. It didn't consume you. You're still standing. This speech isn't about burying your scars. It's about elevating them. Each scar is a signature of that secret deal, a mark that you refuse to be erased. If you're breathing now, it means you honored that deal, that you showed up for yourself, even when everyone else left the room, that you said you would not trade away your story for the safety of anonymity. You refused the unconscious surrender. You accepted the chaos and made it your training ground. So, lean into that. Lean into the darkness you passed through and let it fuel you. Let the city's gossip be the fuel, because what they say is a reflection of your power, not your weakness. They swear you made a deal with death, so breathe loudly. Make every inhalation a witness to your commitment. Every exhalation is the contract you wrote with yourself. I will not fade. I will not shorten my own story. I will not deny my survival. Now, imagine the nights you walked when others slept. Imagine the hours you wrestled with doubt when no voice was cheering you on. Imagine the hollow feeling of your own heartbeat when it was only you hearing it. That solitude forged something. That solitude revealed what you're made of. And now those same nights are your armor. They say you made a deal. That means you chose life when death knocked. That means you stood up after being down. That means you'll continue breathing, even when the odds collect like vultures. The pact is not with death, it's with life. The vow is not to escape, but to transform. To take your pain, your history, the whispers of the city, and turn them into fuel for your ascent. You may ask, what does this deal look like in practice? It looks like showing up when everyone else walks away. It looks like speaking your truth when silence would have been easier. It looks like standing in the mirror and facing the parts of you that you wished were gone, then embracing them. It looks like refusing to accept the half-life of dreams that others quietly traded away because the price seemed too high. In short, the deal is that you will live, not quietly, not in the shadows. You will live with intention. You will breathe with force. You will walk as if each step is a message. I am here. I survived. I continue. And that continuation itself terrifies those who thought you were done. Because you still breathe. Because you still fight. Because you still believe. The city's gossip may claim that you made a deal with death, but let them. Because you know the truth. You made a deal with yourself to rise, to endure, to refuse collapse. They interpret your breathing as cheating death, but in reality, you rewrote the script. You made breathing your rebellion. And now I want you to reflect on your own life. Remember the moments you thought you were finished. Remember the moments when the air felt too thin or the path looked blocked. Remember the voices that told you you've already lost, you're just delaying the inevitable. And then remember how you ignored them. You talked to the mirrors, you cursed the ceilings, you lit something inside and said, not yet. Because you had a different arrangement. You didn't deal with death in the sense they mean. You dealt with your fear of death. You dealt with your fear of insignificance. You dealt with your fear of silence. And now you are breathing. And that alone is your victory. Let every breath be a statement. Let every heartbeat remind you, this is your story. This is your deal. You agreed to keep fighting. You agreed to keep hoping. You agreed to keep showing up. Even when your limbs shook. Even when your mind whispered surrender. Even when the world turned its lights down and expected you to leave. You stayed. You survived. You rose. So when the city talks, let them talk. Talk is their weapon. Silence is yours. The city wheels hear the whispers, the gossip, and they shake their heads. You made a deal with death because you're still breathing. Let them. Because you made something greater than a deal. You made a covenant with your own resilience. Now, in these late hours, Feel the weight of that covenant, not as burden, but as badge, not as curse, but as call. The seed of every legend is the night where nothing seems certain. The seed of every triumph is the moment where the body trembles, the mind withdraws, and the soul flashes a refusal. I will not end here. I will continue. That was you. That is you. That will always be you. And so you walk through the city of your life with this whisper behind you, with the rumor trailing you like a ghostly train. They say you made a deal with death, but you carry something real, the living spark. The living spark refuses to be extinguished. The living spark is you breathing, still. And that breath touches everything around you. Your presence is a disruption. Your survival is a message. Your story is a rebellion. The city may think you cheated something. You see that you honored something. You honored life. You honored your place in the world. You honored that you would not be erased quietly. You honored that the deal was to persist. And in persisting, you awaken others. In persisting, you challenge the gossips. In persisting, you set a new ledger. Where death was expected, you chose life. You didn't bargain away your nights. You lit them up. Let the rumor become your banner. Let the words deal with death transform into a proclamation. You made a deal with living. You made a deal with purpose. You made a deal to breathe and to matter. You made a deal to stand when you could have collapsed. You made a deal to carve your path when the pavement cracked and every footstep echoes that truth. Feel that power resonate in your ribs when you inhale and exhale in the dark. Feel that legacy drawn in by your lungs. Feel your heartbeat drum out the rhythm of defiance because you still breathe, not by accident, but by choice, not by mercy, but by courage, and not just to survive, but to thrive. The city might marvel, might gossip, might cast its verdict, but you carry inside you a covenant no one signed but you, and you live by it. Tonight, I want you to vow something new, that tomorrow, when you step into daylight again, you will not act like you're finishing a sentence. You'll act like you're starting a story. Not like you dodged fate, but like you challenged it and won your right to continue. You will hold your head differently. You will walk differently. You will breathe differently, because you still breathe. And to breathe is to defy. To breathe is to renew. To breathe is to claim each moment as holy ground. Every breath you draw becomes a part of the contract. I will create meaning. I will resonate. I will elevate what I have been given. The city says you made a deal with death because you're still breathing. I say you made a deal with life because you are still standing. And so I ask you, are you ready to keep the deal? Are you ready to honor your own covenant? Because the rumor may fade, but your purpose will not. Because the deal may be unspoken, but its power will be spoken in every heartbeat you draw. Because they will keep talking, but you will keep living. Doing so with authority, doing so with intention, doing so with ferocity of spirit. Tonight, when the world seems still, listen to your lungs, listen to your pulse. Know that somewhere in the cosmos, everything that was trying to quiet you is wobbling now. They hear your presence. They hear your choice. They hear you breathing life into a world that once whispered you were done. So breathe. Breathe deeper than before. Breathe with the weight of remembrance and the light of hope. Breathe with the promise of your own becoming. Breathe as though you signed a contract with existence itself. And remember this, the city gossip aside, you made the deal because you believed you were worth the stand, worth the fight, worth the breath. Not because you feared death, but because you craved life. Not because the odds were in your favor, but because your resolve was in your heart. The deal is this: you live, you matter. You continue, and in doing so, you break the rumors, you rewrite the whispers, you change the story, because you still breathe. Now go out there, Let your breath be loud. Let your steps be sure. Let your presence ripple. The city may still talk, but your life will speak louder. The deal is upheld. The covenant stands. You still breathe, and that is everything. You still breathe, and that is everything. And I want you to sit with that truth, not just hear it, but absorb it, hold it. Let it bleed into every muscle in your body, because when you walk into this world tomorrow, they will still talk. They will still wonder. They will still lean in to whisper your name like it's wrapped in mystery. That's what people do when they can't define something. They mythologize it. And make no mistake, they don't gossip about ordinary people. They only whisper about legends. You have become that legend, not through victory alone, but through continuation. Through persistence, when silence seemed like the only reward. Through showing up with cracked bones, heavy eyes, and an invisible weight dragging behind you. They don't understand that what you carry isn't a secret deal with death. It's the cost of being someone who didn't give up. And those costs, you've paid them in full. You've paid them in loneliness, in nights that bled into mornings with no sleep, in conversations where you smiled while you were breaking inside. You've paid them in risks that didn't pay off, in effort no one applauded, in hours where you questioned whether it was all worth it, but you never put the pen down. You never stopped writing your story. That's the real deal, between you and your own spirit, not one of survival, but of becoming something unshakable. You didn't get here because you took shortcuts. You got here because you took responsibility for your flame. Even when the winds howled, even when the light flickered, even when the darkness laughed and said, "You again?" And you answered, "Yes, me again, still breathing." And that's what they see now. That's why the whispers follow you. They don't understand how you're still going. They don't know how someone who's faced what you've faced is still walking upright. They don't know how your light, though battered, still shines. So they try to explain it in the only language they know. Must have made a deal with death, because that's easier than admitting they don't have that fire inside them. Easier than asking what they've been running from. Easier than confronting their own surrender. But you didn't run. You faced it. Whatever it was, trauma, fear, betrayal, abandonment, emptiness, you faced it and chose to keep breathing. And there's nothing more defiant, nothing more powerful than that choice. Because life isn't handed to you. You take it, you claim it, and every day you wake up and inhale again, you renew the vow, I'm not done. You see, that's what this world fears most. Not chaos, not failure, but someone who refuses to be broken. Someone who lives with intention, and intention is rare. Most people float through life, carried by winds they never learn to name. But you steer through storms. You've charted your own path, even when the compass spun useless in your hand. And that's terrifying to them. That's why the gossip spreads, because they need to believe your strength came from somewhere otherworldly, that you must have exchanged something, that you must have sacrificed someone. But the truth is far simpler and more uncomfortable. You just refused to quit. You just kept moving when the air was heavy and the road was invisible. You just kept believing when there was no evidence you should. You built your future brick by brick in silence, and now the echo of those footsteps carries through the alleyways. And maybe you didn't know it then, but every act of resistance, every time you chose to keep going, you weren't just surviving. You were becoming unbreakable. Let them talk. Let them say whatever they want. Let them believe you shook hands with death under a blood moon, or whispered ancient words to a shadow in your closet. Let them write you into stories and turn your name into a riddle. Because what they don't realize is this: your greatest pact was never with death. It was with your own will. And that pact? It's sacred. It's forged in the heat of battle. It's held together by grit, not glamour, by courage, not convenience, by resilience, not ritual. You didn't wait to be chosen. You chose yourself. That's why you're still here. That's why you breathe with such power that even the air around you shifts. That's why your footsteps sound like answers to questions they haven't even formed yet. And don't you ever downplay that. Don't you ever shrink yourself to make others more comfortable with their silence. Don't you ever apologize for surviving the things that were supposed to take you out. You have earned every moment of this presence. You have earned the right to keep going, to build, to dream, to take up space, to laugh with a voice they can't drown out. You have earned the fire in your chest, and I don't care if they say it's dark. I don't care if they say it's heavy, because the truth is, you carry light forged in the dark. Not borrowed light, not inherited, not passed down, but light you pulled out of your own ruins, light you sculpted from pain, light you bled for. That's why it's yours. So when they say you made a deal with death because you're still breathing, smile. Smile like you know something they don't. Smile like you've seen the other side of silence and brought back a voice. Smile because you chose to stay. You made a deal, yes, but it wasn't with death. It was with every younger version of you that begged for a tomorrow. It was with every broken version of you that swore one day it would be better. It was with every tired version of you that wanted to sleep, but got up anyway. That's the deal. That's the real vow. And every single breath you take is a promise kept. So don't stop now. Not when you've come this far. Not when you've shattered every limit they set. Not when the very act of being you is a revolution. Keep breathing. Keep fighting. Keep becoming. Because they're watching, and they won't understand it. But you don't need them to. You made a deal, didn't you? Yes, but not with death. You made it with life itself. And you're still breathing, and you're still breathing. So now what? Now that the dust has settled and the rumors swirl like smoke through alleyways and hearts and boardrooms and barbershops, what do you do with this truth? You walk into the fire with your head held high. Because if breath is the contract, then every single day you live with intention is you signing again. With sweat, with focus, with unrelenting motion. You're not here to prove them wrong. You're here to prove yourself right. That is your deal. That is your power. You see, when they say, you made a deal with death, they don't just mean survival. They mean you were supposed to disappear. You were supposed to fade out, quietly, like a song no one remembers. But instead, you got louder. Instead, you amplified. You turned your silence into an anthem. You turned your pain into poetry. You turned your ruin into foundation. You didn't avoid the storm. You built your home inside it. And every time they see you now, walking into rooms, speaking with that voice, carrying that weight like it's your weapon, they don't just see a survivor. They see someone who wasn't supposed to make it and did. They see something that can't be explained. And people fear what they can't explain. So they gossip. They say you cheated the end. That maybe death looked you in the eye and stepped aside. That maybe you offered up something. Your soul, your sanity, your softness in exchange for this power, this calm, this refusal to vanish. But we know better. You didn't sacrifice anything that mattered. You reclaimed everything they said was gone. Your strength, your identity, your fire, your reason. They thought you'd barter for survival. Instead, you fought for transformation. And maybe, yes, maybe part of you did die. The version of you that begged for permission. The version of you that shrunk in the presence of small minds. The version of you that apologized for existing. That version is gone. And in its place you emerged, sharper, still, stronger, more dangerous to the systems that want you voiceless. And that's why the whispers follow you like shadows, because shadows only form around those who walk in the light. Now listen closely, because this next part is for you. Not the you they watch, not the you they talk about, not the you they try to explain. This is for the real you, the one behind the eyes, the one who's walked through nights where even your thoughts felt too loud. You're not lucky, you're disciplined, you're not mysterious, you're honest. You're not blessed by darkness, you commanded it, you faced it, and when it lunged at you, you didn't flinch. You looked it in the eyes and said, I belong here, too. You didn't just escape the void, you drew a map through it for others to follow. You became a lighthouse in a world that loves storms. And that's the threat, isn't it? Not that you survived, but that you're showing others how to survive too. You breathe, and suddenly others remember they can breathe too. You speak, and suddenly others find their voice again. You rise, and suddenly they realize they've been kneeling too long. You didn't just make a deal for yourself. You made a decision that would ripple into lives you may never meet. Your breath, your walk, your presence. It echoes beyond your body. It changes atmospheres. It alters expectations. It makes people wonder what's possible again. And that's divine rebellion. That's the kind of power you don't get through luck or favors or shortcuts. That's the kind of power born only in fire. So if they want to say you made a deal with death, let them. But you and I know the truth. You made a deal with life. Not to live safe, but to live true, to live fully, to live loudly, to live like you've seen the end and decided to begin again anyway. And that breath in your chest right now, that's your signature, that's your seal, that's your proof. You, the storm they didn't predict. You are the calm they don't understand. You are the rumor they can't kill. And when they ask, because they will always ask, did you really make a deal? You smile, you breathe, and you say, yes. But not with death, with destiny. And destiny doesn't barter, destiny demands. And you met every demand it gave you. You broke, you bled, you rebuilt, you breathed. And now you carry something priceless, proof that the impossible can walk, can speak, can breathe, can become. And it became you. So wear their whispers like armor, wear your survival like a crown, wear your breath like a war cry, because the city will keep talking, the world will keep watching, and you'll keep breathing, because the deal is still on, and you've only just begun.